It started with a single sentence that lit the fuse. "You don't belong here if you're so anti-vax." No context, no questions. Just that sharp, cutting accusation hurled at me in a Facebook mom group I'd been part of for a while. And in that moment, I could feel my hands tighten around my phone, my pulse climbing, not from guilt, but from the deep injustice of being misunderstood in the worst possible way. My daughter is 2 years old. She's tiny, with eyes that still carry the softness of babyhood, and a smile that could melt anyone's heart. She's also a heart transplant patient. She has congenital heart disease, and her immune system is severely compromised. Because of that, she cannot receive live virus vaccines. The very thing that woman was accusing me of avoiding is something I have fought for my whole life to support. But in my daughter's case, it could be dangerous, even deadly. I've shared this before in the group. The regulars already knew my story. They understood why I don't send my daughter to daycare, why I'm a stay-at-home mom. My boyfriend works, and I stay home. Not because I don't want to work, but because I cannot risk exposing my child to illnesses that her immune system isn't equipped to fight. This was supposed to be a safe place to talk about motherhood, to share our challenges. That day, the topic was daycare versus staying home. I typed my comment simply, explaining that my daughter isn't vaccinated and that I can't take the risk. It was a straightforward statement, but before I could even elaborate, the new member pounced. She came at me hard, names, judgment, the full brunt of righteous anger aimed at people she clearly thought were anti-vaccine conspiracy theorists. She had no idea who I was, what I'd been through, or why my daughter isn't vaccinated. I tried to explain. I told her my daughter had a transplant, that she's immunocompromised, that giving her a live virus vaccine could put her life in danger. I thought surely, with this information, she would pause, realize her mistake, maybe even apologize. Instead, she doubled down. "Stop making excuses," she said. Excuses? That word sliced deeper than the insults. It wasn't just ignorance. It was a refusal to listen, a refusal to believe me, even as I laid out the truth. She didn't want an explanation. She wanted someone to attack. And in that moment, I snapped. "You're an absolute idiot," I told her. "If you even looked at my profile for a second, you'd know I'm an advocate for vaccines. And if you did a bit of research, you'd know that giving someone who is severely compromised a live virus vaccine is a bad idea." I didn't yell. I didn't curse. But I made sure my words were sharp enough to land. The group went silent for a beat. Then the flurry began. Not in defense of me, but in a mix of reactions. She didn't back down. Instead, she posted a rant about me to the entire group, twisting the story to make me sound like the aggressor. And some members, people who knew my history, had the audacity to say I was the asshole for calling her an idiot. I couldn't believe it. Where was this energy when she called me names first? Where was the outrage when she dismissed my daughter's medical reality as an excuse? It was like watching a crowd turn its head away from the first punch, only to gasp when someone punches back. But then, the comments started pouring in from others, not just in the group, but privately. Messages from mothers who understood, who had been through similar situations, parents of kids with compromised immune systems, cancer survivors, people allergic to vaccine components. They told me that my daughter was the very reason herd immunity matters, that I was right to call out ignorance when it spat in my face, They reminded me that vaccines aren't just for the people getting them. They're for the people who can't. People like my little girl. And that's the part that stung the most. The woman who attacked me claimed to be pro-vaccine, but she didn't even grasp the core truth of why vaccines are so important. She thought she was protecting her child by going after me. In reality, my family's safety depends on people like her, understanding that not everyone can be vaccinated. If I could vaccinate my daughter, I would. If I could trust that every other parent sending their child to daycare was vaccinated, I'd gladly enroll her so I could return to work. But I can't risk it. Not with her life on the line. This isn't about politics. It isn't about personal choice. It's about survival. I kept thinking about how easily this could have gone differently. She could have asked a single question. Why can't your daughter be vaccinated? She could have listened. She could have learned something, but she didn't want to know. She wanted to judge. That night, after the group's chaos had quieted down, I sat on the floor beside my daughter's bed. She was asleep, her small chest rising and falling in the glow of her nightlight. I thought about how many times we'd been in hospitals, how many times doctors had explained the risks, how my life now revolves around keeping her safe, healthy, and alive. I thought about the people who, without knowing her story, might look at us and assume the worst. And I realized this is something I'll face again and again. But I also realized this: I will never stop advocating for my child, even if it makes me the bad guy in someone else's version of the story. So, am I the asshole? Sometimes the most dangerous thing in a conversation isn't outright hate. It's willful ignorance, the refusal to ask, to listen, to understand before passing judgment. In this story, the OP wasn't just defending herself. She was protecting her child's life from someone who didn't even realize the stakes. It's easy to talk about being pro or anti something. It's harder to understand the real human experiences that live in between those labels. Herd immunity isn't just a scientific term. It's a promise we make to the most vulnerable among us. And breaking that promise doesn't just put them at risk. It isolates them from the world. So here's the question for you. When you see someone making a choice you don't understand, will you judge first? Or will you ask why? Because that one decision can be the difference between starting a fight and learning something that changes the way you see the world. What would you have done in her place?